Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the EIPA in Conversation, in which we are going to talk about CAF as a tool to promote resilient public administrations in the post-pandemic era. This is a new product from EIPA, and we are very glad, very proud to be the second ones in performing it. We have some others programmed. You can follow it in our webpage. But for this one that we are going to talk about CAF as a tool to promote good performance in public administration, we really want to use it also as a sort of celebration, because EIPA hosts the CAF Resource Center, as most of you knows, now for 20 years. So it was last year that we should have been celebrating. Due to the pandemic, we couldn't really make the appropriate events. So we are trying to do some things this year, and this is one of the many events in which we are putting CAF in the front page of our works. We have with us three major experts in CAF, I would say. First of all, gentlemen first, I will start with Nick. Nick Tays is a colleague, ex-colleague of EIPA. He has been working at the Institute for almost 10 years, and he has been all the time working hand in hand with the other expert of CAF, Patrick Stais, and both of them have really relaunched and revamped the CAF Resource Center in EIPA. So I think we have a lot of lessons to learn from them, but not only from the past, but also from the future, because now he's working with the OECD and working still on quality of public administration, reform of public administrations, and therefore I think we can have a very interactive debate. And then we have with us two other persons. One is coming from Portugal, working now in the presidency of the Council of the EU, and she is Christina Evaristo, also with long experience in working on CAF, researching, implementing CAF. And therefore, again, as a practitioner and first-hand expert, we can also, I think, put a lot of questions forward. And the last one is Barbara Supank from Slovenia. So the upcoming presidency will be in their hands, and they are already preparing a full range of activities that are going to be organized around the CAF network and together with the CAF correspondents. Also with me is Fabrizio, my colleague in EIPA, that has been during these last years in charge of the desk of EIPA CAF Resource Center, and also with quite some experience already after these years working with the different experts that have been forming part of our team. So I would say if you introduce yourself briefly, and then we will start with some questions, some discussions, hopefully, and also giving the floor to the participants online. So you can send to us your questions in the chat, and we will bring them forward to the experts so we can have a sort of discussion, dialogue, and with the idea to look very much also into the future, what is going to happen with the future of CAF in the present situation, post-pandemic era. So please, let's start in the same order. So first, Nick, if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you, Cassia. Well, first of all, thanks, EIPA, for the very kind invitation. Pleasure to meet old friends and colleagues, not only in EIPA, but also with Barbara and with Christina. And I also see others online. So that's perfect. Well, in terms of introduction, I think you did already a really nice intro. So I think not much to add from my side. So I was in EIPA indeed for 10 years, working in depth on the CAF with Patrick and Anne. And since now last year, I joined indeed the OECD, specifically working in the Sigma program, which I think for many of us and you is also familiar. Sigma working with the candidate countries. So mostly the Balkans, but also working at the ENP, so the European Neighborhood Policy countries, partner countries in the south, so the whole North Africa and even part of the Middle East, but also the east. So that's ranging from Ukraine, Moldova, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and other countries in the region. There in Sigma, I'm responsible for what is called the service delivery area, which includes the wide area of service delivery, also including quality management. So also there we are working with still with CAF. But I also take up some other tasks within the wider OECD, but I guess I will come back to this also later on in some recent projects that we start with the member states, the European Commission, and also including EIPA in this. So I think this as a short addition on the things already kindly mentioned by you guys.
Cristina? You are muted.
Hello, good morning. I'm Cristina Evaristo from Portugal. I work from the beginning of my enter in public administration in CAF. So I work in CAF Resource Center 17 years ago with some experience in other places too, but it's very long time working in CAF, in training, making studies, consultancy, and now we have the presidency of the European Union, so I'm available to answer to some questions, because we are developing a study on at European level. So I think I can answer to some questions. I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. I very much appreciate EIPA for inviting me to this event. I hope it will be an interesting one. Well, my name is Barbara Zupans. I'm coming from Slovenian Ministry of Public Administration, where I actually manage the project of implementing CAF in the organizations, in the public organizations in Slovenia. My first meeting with CAF was about 4 years ago when I took over the office. And since then, we have been quite successful in implementing CAF in Slovenia. We have now almost 100 users of CAF, as well as some awarded organizations with CAF PEF. Well, as preparation for the presidency, of course, we are preparing some events, conferences, meetings, and so on. And most important study on CAF impact on human resource management. We have just started it a few weeks ago. So I hope that in a few months we will have quite concrete results of this study, that we will be able to directly connect CAF, the usage of CAF, and the improvement of organizations in the field of human resource management.
Okay, thank you very much. So now, please, Fabrizio, and perhaps you can also introduce it briefly the scheme of the conversation today, and then we start with the questions. You can start with the first. Thank you.
Thank you, Gracia. Yeah, first of all, thank you to everyone for taking part in this event, to the panelists, but also to the participants that I can see that the number is still growing. Well, the idea of this event is exactly what it says on the box, EIPA conversation. So it is basically conversating among the panelists. And of course, we also invite the attendees to write questions in the chat or remarks or anything, so that we can all interact and make this an actual conversation. We have prepared a few questions that have already been shared with the panelists. We will begin, first of all, we'll begin with Nick Tice, our former colleague. We have a question for him, but obviously, as I said, please, to Barbara and Christina, after Nick has answered, you may also give your own answer or your own remarks to his answers. Right, so for the first question, Toniques, from your experience as one of the senior experts of the European CAF Resource Center at EIPA for over 10 years, what is the added value of the European CAF Resource Center to the European CAF network?
Thanks, Fabrizio, for the also interesting question. Well, let me allow to follow up or echo what Gracia said in the very beginning. I mean, it's a celebration, and actually, like 21 years ago, not today, but actually tomorrow and the day after, on the 8th and 9th of May, during the Portuguese presidency. So you see that also now the circle is round. This whole idea of the creation of this CAF Resource Center was proposed. And if you go back into the texts from those meetings, Director General's meetings, as I mentioned, in May in 2000, but later on also the formal establishing in 2001 during the Swedish presidency of the CAF Resource Center, the European CAF Resource Center in EIPA, I think it's very interesting to go back into those original declarations, because there the four roles, distinct roles of the European CAF Center were put forward. The first role to promote in terms of creating awareness, trainings, conferences, actually creating a kind of a dynamic that was and is still the first one. I mean, it's as saying 21 years ago, but it's still very prominent there, and I think EIPA is still playing a good role there. So the promotion is the first thing, and I think there, to link it immediately to your question, Fabrizio, the added value of EIPA always has been and still is to be really at the forefront, to really spreading the gospel, to really actively promote the model, but also what it can bring, not only the technicalities, but also what it can bring. Secondly, also to support. It's not only preaching the gospel, promoting, no, it's also actively supporting, advising by means of consulting, really working with the instruments in organizations, but also supporting, give advice to the national correspondents, Barbara, Christina in this case, but the whole network of correspondents around the European Center. Because I think this is also important to stress from the beginning that, of course, the center at EIPA is visible, was and is always has been visible, but it only can properly function within the whole network of the countries. It always, the European CAF Center never was like something more, something on top. No, it was always an inherent part of this. So promotion first, support and advise organizations, but also to the countries, correspondents. Thirdly, the studying in terms of understanding what is going on in terms of CAF, how it is used, what works, what doesn't work. So not only the development of the model in terms of the new versions, as you have last year launched the 2020 version, but I think always in the past, EIPA has been, again, together with the member states, really been active also in methodological development on the model, but also in terms of studying the use of the model. And very happy to hear now during the Portuguese presidency, but also the upcoming Slovenian, that this studying continues to be there. It's important, and EIPA always has played a role there. Mm-hmm. And then finally, also in playing this center of excellence and also a center of expertise, so that individual organizations, they have like this, well, you can call it single point of reference, single point of contact, and for organizations, but also for the countries. Now, in the early days, I think there EIPA played really this role of central contact points. Also in the time where the member states and the national correspondents, they also have to build their own capacity. Back in the days, EIPA was really like the unique center of reference. Over the years, and we have this, we see this here with the two colleagues in the panel, Also, the national correspondents and the national centers even, they have also gained expertise, and they grew in numbers, but also in terms of knowledge. And so I think there also EIPA played a role of supporting the national centers with expertise in growing their expertise. So there, I think we have seen this shift of focus probably also over the last 20 years by now. So I think in these 4 original roles, these are still the actual roles. And EIPA, I think, has been very instrumental and still will be in the future in all of these roles towards the member states, correspondents, but also individual organizations on a European level, but also across the borders, and not only within the EU. That as a start, Fabrizio.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you very much for your very articulated answer and very, very fulfilling. Do we have perhaps any comments from Christina and Barbara on how they saw the role of the European CAF Resource Center playing during their presidencies? And you know, it is we didn't know about these days that tomorrow, and well, actually in 2 days, it's actually when the CAF was when the during the first, or not from the Portuguese. If there are no questions or no remarks from our other 2 panelists, then perhaps we may jump in into the other question. As we will follow this, we will follow the way that we ask 1 question per panelist, and then we begin again, so that there isn't always the same person talking. Nothing from the chat either, I don't think. So perhaps we can now move on to Christina. We're just following the list randomly. Christina, just a little heads up before for everybody listening. Christina has begun during her presidency a very big study on CAF, and perhaps Christina, the question that we've prepared for you that you've already read is, you have begun an enormous project in wanting to publish a CAF study during your presidency. What made you want to take up such a study, and why? Did you see a gap in the knowledge there, or what were the driving reasons for you to begin such a study?
Yes, because the last study made by EIPA, it's from 2011, so it's a long time ago. A study, an overall study, European level study, because other studies was made, I think, for example, by the Italian presidency, but just on the education sector. So we need this study to take a picture of the CAF implementation at European level. I think this is important to take decisions, okay, to take informed decisions, like we said when we promote the CAF model. And we make a kind of agreement with the Slovenian presidency. So Portugal will be responsible by a study at macro level, how CAF is implemented in member states, at the implementation, for example, if they have a CAF Resource Center, if they have human resources and financing funds to promote CAF, if they have PEF, etc., etc. So this is at macro level, and the Slovenian at micro level, at CAF users level, which is a very important component, because a CAF is to be used by the public organizations. So with this, and the other thing that we discover is that the information about CAF is it's not systematized in a document, in a study. If, for example, anyone want enter in these matters, for example, a member state want develop activities in a new CAF resource center or need of other information. So we have this lack of information. So this study is to organize the information about CAF since 2000, since the birth of the model. So, but in our specific study, we have 3 goals to analyze. We don't have conclude the study. Our goal is to conclude in June. So at this phase, we are analyzing the data, and the study will be developed at three parts. The first part we will examine we will analyze how CAF was promoted in the different member states, and as we know, some member states give up from the network. So in the beginning, we have activity in almost member states, and then this scenario shifts. So nowadays, we have some member states that give up from CAF activities because the options are by other models. And other new member states enter in the network. So the network maintains their activity, which is very good. But we have we want to discover why these member states of the beginning give up from the CAF network. We want to know, to discover why the motives to these decisions. The second part will examine the implementation of the CAF process among the member states. I'm sorry. Okay, because we administer, we make 2 questionnaires. To the one questionnaires about all about the state of art in concerning CAF in member states, and the second questionnaire is to national CAF correspondents, and the second questionnaire was applied to get the perception of the national CAF correspondents concerning the implementation of CAF in their countries. So this is the first part and the second part of the study. And in the third part, we will make interviews to CAF experts and to analyze the impact of CAF, the change that CAF was produced in the public administration. Of course, this is not a real study of impact, because, as you know, the impact studies are very, very, very complex, and we don't have enough material and information and time to make a real impact study. So we will put the question of impact like through the interviews, and the CAF impact on state capacity. It was our main goal.
Okay, thank you very much, Cristina. Maybe the other panelists have some comments. Do you agree with some of the questions put forward in this research study? What is your opinion? Maybe we can discuss about it, the 3 parts. Would you like to say something? Yeah, Nick?
Well, happy to discuss and to share some light or ideas. First of all, what Christina mentioned in terms of the one of the main aims of such a study is that it's crucial, of course, to understand what is going on in the countries, how it is going on, And also, well, not just to study this, but also to discuss this and to exchange within the CAF network, because this is mostly, I mean, this study, and maybe Barbara will comment later on the micro, the organizational level, but here on this, what the Portuguese colleagues are doing, this is on a country level, so CAF correspondence level. This is crucial to exchange among each other, not to struggle on your own in your own country. So in terms of the different levels, the different parts that Christina mentioned, to well understand why countries are promoting, and then to the level below, why organizations are starting to work with CAF, try to understand this, and I underline and emphasis try to understand. I think this is very important. It's still very important, and we might guess and we might have some assumptions here and there, but I think it's good to open up the debate with these countries. You mentioned, Christina, the ones that were active in the early days and then were less active and may even dropped out. Although I would be probably careful in fully saying dropped out, because it's not because they are not using or actively promoting the tool anymore, that the ideas and the concepts and the whole dynamic of what CAF triggered in those countries, that this is not fully alive anymore, which is a nuance but very important. Then in terms of the level of what are the national correspondents are doing, I already commented on this, and then in terms of the impact, this is very important but very difficult, as we all know and as you also said. But I think it's good to try to get some idea of the impact, because this is of course important to also convince new CAF users, but also new countries, why they should start with this. I mean, if we can demonstrate or prove or illustrate some impact, that might convince others, certainly in these times and these days. And we tried to do this in 2014 with a study in the education sector, where we looked also into what were really the results of the CAF exercise, not in terms of action plans, but really in terms of performance results, increased efficiency, performance, user orientation and results, all these kind of areas. So there we did an effort. It was very interesting to see. Not easy, so I'm very happy that you took up this challenge. So I'm fully in favor of that you do this kind of study, but also the way that you approach this, Christina.
Thank you, Nick. Barbara, I suppose you have some comments as well, so go ahead, please.
Not really comments on the Portuguese study, but actually I just wanted to present what were the aims or what are the objectives of the micro study. As just Nick said, it's this question, why? Why should we do it? Every year we do have difficulties in the organizations, public organizations in Slovenia, and I'm sure it's the case elsewhere, to actually persuade people to start an activity on implementing CAF, but we don't have very concrete answers. Why should they do it? We say, yes, it will bring up the best from your staff, the communication will be better. That's everything that is true, but we really should have some more concrete results on CAF implementation after 20 years. That was actually the basic idea behind this study. And of course, measuring impact on every aspect of an organizational activities is difficult. So we focused on human resource management. And we have developed a questionnaire with 15 questions regarding the measures organizations have taken in their implementation, improvement plans, in regard of recruitment, attraction, onboarding, actually the whole human resource cycle, and we hope to get some. We expect to prove at least some correlation, linkage between the use of CAF and, of course, improved performance of public administration in the field of human resource management. And of course, we would be very happy if other presidency then following would probably then cover some other aspects of organizations, so that maybe in time we could get a broader picture of the impact of CAF. This is basically what I wanted to say now. And also what I think it's important, as Christina said, their survey is focused on CAF experts. We, on the other hand, are focused on CAF users. Actually, we have focused on effective CAF users. There are around 200 in Europe at the moment. So we believe that they know the best why they're doing CAF. They have more experience than regular users. They have done it once or twice. So we hope to get the results from them, but also not only these objective measurements like how many and on which field they were the measures from the improvement plan, but also we would we would like to get their perspective on that, their perception actually, which is a subjective one, but still very valuable.
Okay, so very interesting. These studies, these works, of course, as you have said, is of major importance to understand what is going on, what is the impact in order to see where to improve. But on top of that, the major challenge now of, well, the new situation in which with the new CAF 2020, we are trying to modernize the tool and to really be up to date with the new necessities of public administration. So, well, we have already spent 35 minutes of our time for the conversation, but I would like just gradually invite you to put ourselves a little bit on what next. I mean, I think we need to analyze what has happened during these 20 years, what has been the impact, what are the pros and cons, what has been done better or not so good. But we have a new reality in the public sector. We have a new reality in our societies. How are we going to be? What is our role? What is the national correspondence, the CAF network, the CAF Resource Center at EIPA for the new situation? And there are already actions. Barbara, you are involved in this major event that is going to take place in October together with OECD, forward looking. I just want to bring up the question and just Fabrizio, we continue with the debate, but maybe now we move a little bit. What is going to be the future? Let's start maybe with Nick. Thank you.
Well, if I could predict the future, Garcia, probably I would not be sitting here, but somewhere else. But happy nevertheless to give some ideas or at least some reflections on some elements in the future where hopefully we can have some impact on. I would say well, two things. One more in general, and then the other one related to COVID. If this is what you're aiming at that well, and I also spotted some question from the chat from colleague and friend Mike Burnett. So I don't know if you also want to go into that extent already. But into the future, well, what I think is important, Garcia, is to for the whole CAF as a community. I don't want to call it just as an instrument, but as a community, is to demonstrate its added value in terms of this impact. The thing that Barbara mentioned already, that the CAF as a community and the model part of it should be able to demonstrate that it works, that it has worked, but that it can work. and working in the sense that it can generate impact in organizations. Impact that it changes well, to use a big word, that it changes a culture, a mentality, which is then illustrated by practical ways of doing, acting, organizing, behaving, right? And so this is where I think the CAF as a community should focus on, and these studies are really good, I think, in showing what is going on, how the CAF is used, but also trying to get an understanding to what it can bring, to what it can lead in terms of impact. Because this is how to convince future users, and certainly on the level of, well, high managerial senior levels and even political levels. If even on a technical operational level, people are convinced of the added value, still decisions are be taken, call it higher up. And so this whole impact, added value, showing that it can work by studies, by examples, by organizing peer-to-peer, this is really important. Showing that it can work, I think it's well, a very important moment, what we are experiencing now, well, now and what we have been experiencing the past year. Because there, the main question is indeed to what extent, if we assume that CAF brings in this new culture, thinking, ways of doing in organizations, being more agile, being more able to fastly respond and turn their ships because they are confronted with a huge game changer, as COVID was and is still the case. Well, can we also see this? Can we feel this? Have we experienced that organizations that have been working with CAF, also with others, but in this case with CAF, that they have this more, well, call it more mature way of thinking and dealing agile. And I think we can back this up with some very concrete examples, anecdotal, which is important, which is definitely important. Now, what we are currently doing, and this is what I also said in the beginning, my other role wider in OECD, is that we are working with a group of countries, also with, well, on behalf of the European Commission, DG Reform, and also working together with EIPA in a big work on, well, what we call looking backwards, but also looking forwards. Looking backwards in thinking about and looking at the crisis, to what extent has the CAF worked? Can we document, can we find cases, can we study them, how this growing level of maturity, how this has materialized and actually helped organizations, public sector organizations, steering through the crisis, because basically they were better prepared. And I mean, picking up some of the questions from Mike, this would be like one of the things. I mean, can CAF help in rethinking service delivery, rethinking organizational structure, rethinking remote working from staff, rethinking risk management and planning? Well, ideally, organizations that have been working with CAF and strengthening themselves, they should have been better prepared to, well, act fast or faster in a more agile way in steering through the crisis. That's
yes,
one thing.
We don't have proofs of that. That's what you are saying. We need to test it, right?
Indeed, we have anecdotal proofs for sure, that we all know an organization here, an organization there, that we know were already strong organizations, let me put it in these human terms, strong organizations before, and that were easily able, well, more easily able, to also manage the service delivery that certainly they had to organize fully digital, for example, or teleworking, or you name it, all the things where we were confronted with. But indeed, what we want to study is, can we really prove this even more?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. The other thing is that we will also look towards the future, and then also coming to a couple of Mike's questions. Well, looking backwards is like, well, were these kind of organizations well prepared because of working with CAF? Looking towards the future is, well, has CAF in its structure, in its concepts, in the model, has it all the components to ask these critical questions? And if not already, we think it does to a huge extent, but if not already, what needs to be strengthened? Because in my opinion, all the things mentioned here, like thinking, reassess the service delivery, well, this is already, COVID or no COVID, this was a kind of underlying principle that we have always put in the CAF. That organizations should reflect about, are we delivering the services to our users according to needs and expectations? Should we go completely digital? Should we work multi-channel, omni-channel, whatever? In terms of buildings, do we have the right infrastructure for our staff, but also for the users? Thinking about risk management, planning, well, disaster management, no one could have foreseen such a disaster. But within the CAF, we also included this element of thinking about risks in making plans, strategic, business continuity, so processes, but also towards HR, in towards buildings, you name it. So we think, and hopefully with me, all of you think that the CAF was already well equipped, but we would like to even to test this more and to see this more, to even strengthen it better. That's the second component of this project. Sorry to take a bit long, but yeah, in predicting the future, one needs to be careful. So I need a lot of words to be careful.
Thank you very much, Nick. Indeed, very interesting and very challenging work ahead, but I think which is a must if we really want to grow and improve, which is our intention. Fabrizio, maybe we have something in the chat from Michael. Yes.
We have, well, first of all, I think that Michael has sent us 3 very important suggestions on how CAF can help on several issues, but he sent it to us, the panelists. So we'll just read out Michael's suggestions to all of the attendees. Michael has been a colleague at EIPA for many, many years. He retired last year. So 3 issues where CAF can help, as pointed out by Michael. Number 1 is the need to enhance public sector resilience through more effective emergency planning and disaster recovery. Number 2 is the need to reassess public sector service delivery methods and working patterns, including management and remote working, as Nick has touched upon as well. And number 3 is the reassessment of need for infrastructure, nature infrastructure needed. These are the 3 issues that that Michael has pointed out. Now, having said this, we have spoken clearly about the strengths of CAF, and there is one question in the Q&A, not in the chat, by another attendees, which I think is very, very interesting because it's also a question that touches upon the questions that we had prepared. And the question is how to convince member states to promote CAF in their own countries, and what to do for a new country that looks to set up a CAF National Resource Center and to grow the number of CAF users. Given that Christina is here with us, perhaps Christina, you might have a suggestion for this attendee, because Portugal, by the numbers, is one of the countries that is stronger in CAF, that has a lot of CAF users, and you've also now started to lead up a project on the CAF education, on the revision of CAF education just for the education sector. So perhaps you might have suggestions for Vera.
Yes, I think one thing that is very important to improve the CAF users in the country, I think it's having a national CAF resource center. I think a structure that promotes CAF, that have 1 or 2 persons, that gives information, answer the questions to new CAF the new CAF users. I think it's important to have this kind of structures. Some countries, and we see in our study, some countries have big structures and or make partnerships with private institutions, and can give a different support like consultancy, but in Portugal we don't have that kind of resources. So we are we have a few structure with a few members and with very, very few budget. But we can do activities. We can dedicate our activity just to CAF and just to support the CAF users with information, with a good website and tools to apply CAF. So I think this support is very important if countries want to have very CAF users. And other thing is it's like we have in CAF education. We have a lot of CAF education users because because we have in our education system an external evaluation assessment of the schools. So, and in this program to assess schools, the schools have to make a self-assessment. So they choose CAF to make this self-assessment. So as you know, we have a linkage between a program that it exists, it's a public policy, and they use CAF in the scope of this program. Okay, so it's a volunteer using. It's not obligatory to use CAF education. It's schools ask for a tool, a self-assessment tool, so and use CAF education. It's just to say that this is important. It's not impose CAF model, but the public organizations need a tool that help to improve their performance, and we make marketing with CAF in Portugal in this sense. So if you want a starting point to improve your performance, so start with CAF. CAF, it's a good tool. And just to finalize my intervention and to add some comments to what Nick said about the future of CAF. If we think about the evolution of CAF, in the beginning we have our concern in the CAF network. It's to promote CAF as a self-assessment tool, and then we have a second phase where we promote CAF as a self-assessment tool and to improve the organization, to implement improvement actions. And that is important. Apply CAF, it's to make a self-assessment and to improve the actions, the improvement action. And now I think we have to focus on the sustainability of CAF, because apply CAF one time, it's not enough to change the culture and the performance of our organization. I think promote CAF as a sustainable model to make systematic self-assessment exercise to improve our performance, to continuous improvement. I think that is one of the routes to the future. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a question from Ilka related to CAF and education. She's wondering how do we see, or do you see that CAF could help to find a common administrative solution to the international cooperation for higher education, especially European universities? Do you think the result of CAF can help higher education organizations?
In our group, we start a group 2 weeks ago. Not formalize the group, but we have some countries in this group, and one aspect that we want to reflect is to orientate CAF education to IG sector level, because CAF education in this moment it's very focused on practice of medium of schools it's not very developed to the education to IG education level, and we want to go in deep in this future of CAF education model.
Okay, do you agree, all the other panelists, with this approach? Maybe Nick, okay?
Yes, I agree. I think what it can bring is this the common language. You have a common language. You have a common scope because of the model, and because of, I think, also the working with the model at the different stages that Christina rightly mentioned. I think this can really help a group of people working in a similar area to stimulate their reflections, their thinking, their future areas of work. And this is something, if you allow me, that I would like to add to the previous thing that Christina mentioned in terms what should a research center or a CAF resource center do at national level. I fully agree with building the structures, promoting, and all the things that Christina mentioned. I would just highlight one very important thing, and that is to bring organizations and people together. Because you can promote and you can organize trainings and you can foresee consultancy, whatever, all the things you have to do. But at the end, what is really important is to create this dynamic, to bring together people, organizations, to learn together, to exchange, even to suffer together, going to the same kind of issues and problems. And this is what we have seen over these 20 years, where EIPA has been very instrumental on a European level, bringing all of these together. Different member states, and I think Slovenia and Portugal, but also others, have been very good in picking up this message, in doing this on a local, even regional level, and country level. But this can also be the case for the sector of education, higher education, and relates to the question, is also to create this, closer communities and to exchange with each other based upon a common language because of the model and this common point of view and way forward. And so for me, that's crucial, creating this nice, call it a vibe, dynamic, bringing people together and discussing together.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 5 minutes left if we respect the time. So maybe Fabrizio, you can bring up some of the comments and round up with a final question.
Sure. As long as the comments in the chat, we have a question that we haven't picked up. It was just before Ilka, I think, is up to now the network of is, first of all, is a question by Anne, another former colleague who Nick will tell you she's played a great role in CAF. I never worked with Anne. I met her once, but she was part of the CAF team indeed, and she points out that up to now the network of national correspondents and the CAF users have been questioned. Would it also be an idea to question the assessors? So what I would believe from this question, I think that Anne is talking about the external feedback actors, I think, when it comes to the PEF procedure of the CAF. So perhaps what she's referring to is the other big pool of the external actors that go and assess organizations that have used the CAF in order to award the effective CAF user label. So the question on this, perhaps, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that I will pose to all of you, is what is the role of this assessor in our organization, and how can they maybe help public sector organization in using the CAF? Because what the ECU is at its core is actually the privilege of having experts come into your organization and handing you a report that says how you're doing and how you're using the model. And of course, okay, so it's more about the future study, so collect the feedback of the external feedback actors. I'm not sure if those have been collected as well, Christina, in the study, or if they're present in there.
Yes, indeed. At the beginning, we intend to make a questionnaire to the assessors of effective CAF user, but now we have to abandon that idea, and we will make interviews to some assessors to take information, but it's in the third part of the study. I think the assessors are very important because they are between the macro level and the micro level. They have the perspective of the organizations and a transversal perspective, but no, we will not make a deep questionnaire to all assessors because there are not assessors in all member states, as you know, just in the member states that have implemented the PEF.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Anything to add, Nick or Barbara, on this, on the role of the assessors and how they...
For myself and for Slovenian assessors, I must say that they're actually our most important asset, because we cherish them very much. They are the ambassadors of CAF. They have the knowledge and they have the experience, and they have the sort of important public role. So if they're the most important people we turn to when we need to actually fulfill our indicators, when we don't have enough organizations that would like to implement CAF. So they are actually the most important people that we have in Slovenia, because they have expertise, knowledge, and they're the first ones that we really turn to when we need an opinion on whatever. So okay. I think that a network of these, we have around 40 of them. A network of these people is really important, and we really try to involve them in all the activities that we have, in promotion, in events, and so on.
Okay, good. Good. So, well, we have finished our hour, but perhaps just very briefly, 5 minutes. You are organizing this large conference on CAF, better regulation, better quality, innovation. Is a quite ambitious event that is being planned with the OECD as well. Can you very briefly please tell us something about your upcoming plans during your presidency, and then we will just round up and close. Thank you.
Yes, I will actually finish with an invitation to all of you to participate at the conference. It's called Government Beyond Recovery Towards a Future Fit for All. As Gracia also mentioned, it is organized together with EIPA and the OECD, mostly the Observatory for Public Administration. Actually, the starting point for this conference was the loss or the decline of citizens' trust in state administration and public administration during the pandemic crisis. This crisis has shown that our governments are not fit for a crisis like that, and that we need to find new answers and new measures to cope with upcoming crisis. So the idea is that the green and the digital transformation, as well as policy making, if we want to regain trust from the citizens back, should be human-centric, built on trust, collaboration, inclusiveness, co-creation across all sectors of government. This conference is also a milestone, actually, because it is addressing this topic from different angles, from perspective of quality, from innovation in public sector and better regulation. And as it turned out, this idea is maybe 2-3 years old, but it turned out that it's now more important than ever. We had no idea that these three fields will merge so much in these days. So, as already said, this conference will attach topics like anticipation, co-creation, experimentation, the necessary preconditions for future-ready governments, especially the role of inspirational leadership. As Nick already mentions, the problem of leadership is constant. And also of motivated and skilled employees. What are the jobs and skills for the future? So everybody is very much welcome. The conference will take place online. We have decided to do it online because it's actually for a global event. It is much easier to get the panelists as well as, of course, the participants. It will take place on October 18 and 19. So you are very much invited to this event. I think it will be a great one. It's quite a challenge for us because these are the topics that are challenging. I must also say that we will of course, deal with CAF, because now the audience today is more or less the quality one. We will actually introduce the learnings about how CAF affects change, how it affects mindset to embrace these human-centric developments in public administration, and of course, together with EIPA. We will also be introducing the best practices, which will be recognized by the European Public Sector Awards, the ESPA, because by then the results will be known. So together with EIPA, we will do the presentation of best practices in public administration in the last 2 years, actually. So you are welcome to this event.
So thank you very much. Very interesting event, very challenging as well. And I think all of us, we will be delighted to participate. As you said, the idea was before the crisis, but well, it's more needed than ever, a conference like this. Just the last question to round up and to finish, is CAF now also more needed even than before? Very briefly, Nick, your opinion.
Well, as I said before, CAF as an instrument to change this new way of thinking. The mindset was mentioned by Barbara. So if CAF triggers this new way of thinking, of doing, and overall this culture, yes, this is still not acquired and gained in all places, in Europe, outside Europe. So there is still a lot of work. Hasn't anything changed over the last 20 years? No. I mean, lots of things has changed, but are we there yet? No. So is CAF needed? Absolutely. CAF that can stimulate this new way of thinking and doing, absolutely. And this is where we and you as CAF community have to really hammer on that nail to show this impact, and that CAF can bring this change of thinking and culture.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any further comment? No?
Yes, just to agree with Nick that I think CAF it's needed because it's a change of culture in public administration. So, and we need to open minds, out of the box, and we need this CAF 2020 that introduce what is important for nowadays, that is agility and digitalization and diversity, and some of these values that are very important in the days. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Yeah, Barbara?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it has shown before, but I think it will be even most important in the future. It is a step in the right direction, definitely. But it must be purpose-driven, if you understand. Don't do CAF if you don't know why you do it. But if there is a dedication from the leadership and from the employees that they want to dedicate themselves to the quality, to better performance, and to better relations with citizens, which is now so important, then of course CAF is probably the first step in this direction. But with a purpose, not because somebody said you should do it.
Yeah, indeed. So thank you very much. We need that change of mind, that we need that purpose looking into the future. I think we have covered very important and different topics. I think there are so many challenges ahead. This is a work of a network, and everybody in the network is important. We really have to reinforce our network, our relations. I think we have this instrument that allows us to have conversations, to have discussions. We need to do this more often, and we will, as EIPA, try to facilitate that as much as possible. So thank you so much to all of you for being here, for illustrating with your opinions, for listening and participating with the questions. I think we have a long way ahead, but this is the beginning of a celebration. So we start as we finished. 20 years is a long history. We have a lot of lessons learned, a lot of things that we can improve, and our eyes go to the future. So thanks to all, and see you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.